So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. It is now time for our first keynote speaker to take center stage. With that, joining us via Zoom to share their thoughts on current investment opportunities in Africa, please welcome the Group MD and CEO of Zenith Bank PLC, Mr. Ebenezer Onyeagwu.
Good afternoon, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. It is my singular pleasure and honor to be part of the EBII conference for 2021. When this conference held last year, I made a commitment to Adjoa that Zenith Bank will continue to maintain sponsorship of this program. This is as a result of the profound impact which we believe that EBII will make in terms of projecting the African continent. First and foremost, I want to say thank you to His Excellency, the President of the Federal Republic of Ghana, President Nana Akufo-Addo, for that very inspiring and captivating speech. To the President, I say, Medesa. It is not enough for me to say thank you in English. I have to say thank you in Twi, and I hope I pronounce it correctly. To the Oxford community, I remain very profoundly proud of what you are doing, not just because of your rich history and pedigree, not just because I'm an alumnus of Oxford, but because of the inclusiveness of your initiative in improving humanity. I also like to recognize the presence of Her Excellency, the AU Chairperson for Infrastructure in Africa. I also want to recognize the presence of Lord Boateng, Paul Boateng. Ladies and gentlemen, I think the President has set the tone for the conversation today. This is about Africa. I remain incredibly proud of being an African. I think in my other world, if there is anything like other world, I will remain an African. I don't think I would trade my African heritage for anything. It's important for us to look at a few very salient issues. Today, I will be speaking on impact investing in Africa. But before I go on, it will be good to ask some questions. It will be good to look at some perspective. One is that you cannot eliminate poverty, but you can alleviate poverty. Therefore, the question is, how effective are we in alleviating poverty in Africa? Number two, how do we checkmate the President's nomadic disposition of the very vibrant African youths who are daily traversing the Mediterranean and the desert looking for greener pasture in Europe? How can we address the inequality that breeds across the different sector of our demography in Africa? How do we address the health challenges? How can we improve the living standard in Africa? Today, Africa is rated as a continent or region with the least life expectancy. Africa averages life expectancy of about 63 years, against 75 to 82 for the rest of the world. How do we change this in Africa? I believe that impact investing ticks the boxes for these key issues. What is impact investing? Impact investing is defined by United Nations Industrial Development Organization as investing in companies and organizations and funds with the intention to generate social and environmental impact alongside a financial return. I personally see impact investing as that investment that seeks to guarantee effective return to the investors, create substantial value to all stakeholders, and also ensure the sustenance of humanity. To me, impact investing is all about humanity. So how are we implementing impact investing? The IMF global investor appetite for impact investing is put at about $26 trillion. Out of these $26 trillion, about 8% of it is intent on focusing on Africa. 8% of that, Africa is populated with about 1.3 million people out of the global number of 7.8. Therefore, with Africa accounting by about 18% of the world, if about 8% is being devoted for impact investing in Africa, that to me looks like Africa is in the room but not at the table. This has to change. What are the imperatives for impact investing in Africa? First is that Africa is believed to be one of the oldest continents. However, its share of global economy is not significant. Africa accounts for about less than 5 to 6% of global GDP, notwithstanding the fact that 18% of the world population resides in Africa. In other words, 18% of the global market is in Africa. And what does that say to me? Africa is lacking in terms of economic development. Again, I talked about the life expectancy in Africa being at an average of 63%. How can we have improved life expectancy when we don't have investment in healthcare? We don't have investment in agriculture. We are not producing enough food. Africa is being ravaged by hunger. Africa is being ravaged by poor infrastructure. If we invest in Africa, I believe that in no time, Africa will improve in terms of life expectancy. The second point again for me is that Africa is a large market. Africa with 1.3 million people, out of which 60% of that is at age below 25 years and below. 25 years and below, accounting for 60%, speaks of a vibrant demography. It speaks of a native demography. It speaks of an availability of very vibrant labor force. But the paradox of that is that if you don't engage this active youth, something else will take over. That is what we need to address when we are looking at impact investing in Africa. Again, Africa is a land of immense opportunities. Africa is endowed with a number of natural resources, but these resources are not being properly tapped. These resources cut across agriculture, they cut across mining, they cut across electricity, power generation, healthcare, but however, we are not effectively applying these resources. Africa accounts for about 60% of the uncultivated arable land in the whole world, and about 9% of world freshwater bodies. The water bodies we have in Africa are not being effectively used. These water bodies can be used effectively for agric farming. But instead, what we see taking over water bodies in Africa is water hyacinth. We also have a situation where Africa, the uncultivated arable land, if we have the right investment, the mechanized kind of agriculture taking place in Africa, Africa will be home for organic food generation in the whole world. So instead of the rest of the world, thinking of investing in genetically modified food with its attendant consequences, my advocate will be that this investment should be channeled to organic food production in Africa. Africa indeed has the resources, the wherewithal in terms of endowment to act as one of the very credible sources or as acting as the food basket of the whole world. Again, Africa financial market is not developed. It's very shallow. You can't take a deep dive in African financial market. You will break your skull and your neck. The reason for this is not far-fetched. It is because of the poor investment in Africa. The Morgan Stanley Index, if you go through the Morgan Stanley Index, you discover that in the developed markets, there is no single Africa country Africa exchange listed in the developed market. When you go to the developing markets, the emerging markets, you can only boast of 2 exchanges in Africa, Egypt and Joburg. But when you look at the frontier markets, there are only 8 exchanges in Africa. On the whole, you are talking about Africa exchanges recognized in the Morgan Stanley Index. In a continent of 54 countries, we can only boast of about 8 exchanges listed in the Morgan Stanley Index. We need investment in Africa to lift up Africa. We need to have a lot more presence in terms of investment for Africa to be able to grow and develop. So Africa is believed to be the new frontier for growth as the other regions have matured. Other regions have matured, and in the pre-COVID-19 decade, a good number of African countries such as Nigeria, Ghana, Rwanda, Angola are experiencing incredible growth in terms of the growth rate. Africa is open for investment, and investment in Africa guarantees optimal return. And I make bold to say that you make more money operating out of Africa than selling into Africa, because of the availability of resources, because of the availability of market, and because of the availability of cheap labor. The other reason why I think impact investing is very compelling in Africa is the fact that we have the youth that we can engage, instead of them allowing them to go into the nomadic disposition of seeking for greener pasture in Europe. So in addition to that is the fact that the emergence of the African Continental Free Trade Area is leading to a dispensation where Africa will become one global market. What that means is that you don't need to be in the whole of Africa to be in Africa. With the emergence of the African Continental Free Trade Zone, your presence in one country in Africa guarantees you access to the entire African market. You can't beat that. That is a huge opportunity. That is an opportunity that is open to the rest of the world to begin to think of investment and look at Africa differently. Besides that, the payment system in Africa is on a steady growth and improvement. As a result of the improvement in the payment system in Africa, we are creating a lot of empowerment for the medium and low income earners. Credits are now more available to the private sectors. Retail credits and consumer lending are now more popular in Africa. They are gaining ground. As a result of that, consumption is also growing in Africa. Therefore, Africa guarantees you effective market. Africa guarantees you that huge and monumental market availability. So it's important that we look at Africa beyond AIDS. Africa should be seen in terms of the resources we have to offer. Africa should be seen in terms of the dispensation of the fact that the period of olds have changed. The emergence of the African Continental Free Trade Zone area, personally, I see it as a game changer. I see it as a game changer because it's going to drive a lot of reforms. It's going to drive uniformity in terms of customs and practices around Africa. So what is Zenith doing to promote impact investing? First is that Zenith has continued to maintain a strong voice of advocacy. We do this through the sponsorship of the Inside Africa on CNN. This program has existed for about 22 years, and Zenith has continued to sponsor it for the last 16 years. We feel that Africa needs to have a voice. Africa needs to be seen. We need to show to the world what the world does not know about Africa. The rich cultural heritage of Africa, the rich endowment, the creativity, the high energy that you see in Africa. That is what we are expounding to the rest of the world by the sponsorship of Inside Africa. If you haven't watched the program or you haven't been watching it, I encourage you to watch it so that you appreciate the diversity and the richness and the creativity and amount of talents that are bound in different parts of Africa. All we need to do is to begin to monetize these resources about Africa. Again, Zenith Bank leverages its in-depth knowledge of African market to provide guidance to investors and hedge their exposures in investing in Africa. In most cases, the concern about Africa is volatility in our exchange rate, currency challenges. But Zenith Bank has developed the capability to guide investors in terms of managing their investment and making sure that they are not overtly exposed to currency exposures. If you want a deep understanding of that, I invite you to have a one-on-one interaction with Zenith. As at today, Zenith has been able to onboard close to 10 to 15 new investors in Africa with their exposures properly hedged, with the currency risk properly hedged for them. I'm not going to be giving you details of how it works, but in a one-on-one contact with Zenith Bank, both in Nigeria and Ghana, in every location where we have presence, we'll be able to let you know what we do. I can also give an instance of an Indian business that came to Nigeria in 2005. This particular Indian business is into recycling. The first month of operation, the export transaction that was done was less than $200,000. But between 2005 and now, this Indian company is doing an export of about $10 to $15 million monthly in Nigeria by simply doing recycling. Not only are they improving in terms of the growth of the business, this same company has provided employment to the local communities. This same company has provided water for the community, provided good roads and electricity for the community. That is a classical example of impact investment. Zenith Bank is looking for such investors to partner with, to guide them and navigate them through the process of investing in Africa. It is always said that if you are going on a bumpy, rocky road, go with those who know the way. Zenith Bank knows the way in terms of investing in Africa. We invite you, we extend our hand of fellowship in collaboration with would-be investors. Again, in terms of impact investing and supporting the ESG agenda, because we are a signatory to the United Nations Program Finance Act and Principles for Responsible Banking, we have devoted about $50 million towards providing financing for small and medium-scale enterprises, long-term financing at single digit, and also providing financing for women-led businesses. And let me say that Zenith Bank remains, when it comes to gender diversity, Zenith Bank remains very strong and top. Zenith Bank has about 6 subsidiaries. Out of these 6 subsidiaries, 4 of them are being headed by women CEOs. Besides being headed by women CEOs, 2 of the boards of the subsidiaries are being headed by the boards are being headed by women. Beside that, my deputy is a lady. And in terms of the workforce, 48% of our workforce are ladies. So in terms of gender diversity, Zenith Bank remains very, very conscious and will continue to apply the principles of responsible banking as being initiated by the UNEP FI. And in recognition of the efforts and our footprints in terms of gender diversity, and in recognition of what we are doing in the SDG space, Zenith Bank last year was rewarded with the Best Company in Promotion of Gender Equality and Women Empowerment in Africa at the 2020 Sustainability Enterprise Responsibility Awards. Now, in closing, what are my closing thoughts? 1, we need to have a shift in paradigm in Africa. Africa is a work in progress. I'd like to urge all leaders in Africa, both at the private and the political sector, do not despair. Do not give up. Let us avoid living in denial. Let us recognize the fact that, yes, we have had errors of omission, but it's not a failure. Let's begin to make a determination to do things differently. Let's rise up. Let's make the tough calls. Let's be ingenious. Let's be open for business. Secondly, we must learn to do things in a different way. We must ensure that in terms of our laws, in terms of the rule of law, that we respect the rule of law and the sanctity of contract. There's no investor that would be interested in coming to a location or a region where there's no rule of law. I'd like to urge African leaders, both at the political and the private sector, for us to take up responsible and take up the issue of responsibility and accountability seriously. much more seriously. And the fight for corruption, the fight against corruption must be taken to the next level, just like His Excellency, the President of Ghana, earlier mentioned. Two, we must de-risk Africa. How do we de-risk Africa? It has to be reforms. The government of Nigeria is doing quite a lot in terms of reform. The ease of doing business in Nigeria has been remarkably improved. The government of Nigeria has also come up with what we call the Road and Task Infrastructure Task Credit, which provides a means for the private sector to collaborate with government in building, accelerating the building of infrastructure. And just recently, the Central Bank of Nigeria, created the Infraco company, which is expected to have a share capital of not less than 15 trillion. The equivalent of that is going to be close to over $20 billion. The whole essence of this is to take care, to provide the vehicle to address the infrastructural needs of the country. Government cannot do it alone. Government should be seen as enablers of business. Government should be seen creating the laws and creating the environment for businesses to thrive. So African countries will need to embrace more reforms. Like I said, the respect for the sanctity of contract must be there. And above all, Africans must say no to xenophobia. We cannot be killing ourselves. A Nigerian you see today in South Africa, there's no difference between him and a South African. And let's understand and bear in mind that united we stand in Africa, divided we fall. There's no need for us to be self-destructive by reason of xenophobia. We are not helping the continent. We are not helping will-be investors. We are not creating the right impression about Africa by carrying out xenophobic attack. That is retrogressive. Xenophobia should be, is something of the, in fact, is not, it can be associated even with the old Stone Age. At the period when we are talking of advancement, things like xenophobia should not be seen in our climate anymore. So I call on African government across the continent that everybody should rise up and say no to xenophobia. Next point for me is that we must develop our human capital. The Bible has it, I think it's in the book of Hosea chapter 4 verse 6. It said the people perish for lack of knowledge. We need to build knowledge in Africa. We need to build knowledge of the fact that yes, we can get things done in Africa. Knowledge is power. That power over ignorance, power over quite a lot of things that you are not aware of. Knowledge will liberate the thinking faculty. Knowledge will build understanding. Knowledge will build wisdom in Africa. Wisdom for us to begin to change and see things differently. Then to the rest of the world, Africa will be demanding reciprocity. Why do I talk about reciprocity? There is no part of the country, there's no part of the world today that you will not find Africans excelling in different sectors. Africans are helping to build economies elsewhere. That we should reciprocate and bring investment to Africa. Let's think of Africa beyond the AIDS. Let's think of Africa beyond rhetorics. Let's have a reciprocity. Let there be commensurate investment. And a better Africa, a progressive Africa will give indication of a progressive world. And in closing, I would like us in Africa, and for those who are interested in investing in Africa, I would like us to imbibe the spirit of Ubuntu. The spirit of Ubuntu that talks about humanity. I am because you are. Let's connect with Ubuntu spirit. Ubuntu connects with humanity. We urge you to think of, well, if you are thinking of investment in Africa, you are thinking of investment that will create empowerment for humanity, not necessarily for just investment, but lifting humanity and making sure that the SDG goals and the ESG goals are clearly achieved across the world. So Africa is rising and shining, and our moment is now. Let's not despair. And I believe that in my time, a greater Africa will be there for the whole world. Thank you.
Mr. Onyeagwu, thank you very much indeed. Now, ladies and gentlemen, you may well have questions for our last speaker. We'd ask you to just store those up for the moment, please. We will have time for a Q&A. After we've heard from our next keynote speaker, who will be continuing the same theme. Also joining us via Zoom is the African Union Commissioner in charge of infrastructure and energy, Her Excellency, Dr. Amani Abou-Zeid.
Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Really delighted to be with you today. But let me start by thanking my sister Adjoa and the EBII group, as well as the University of Oxford, for allowing me to join you this morning or this afternoon, depending where you are. And this summit is fast becoming a welcome regular meeting to which we look forward every year. I'll speak today about where we were, from where we were last year to where we are today and where we should be heading. It is undeniable that, of course, the pandemic has impacted all aspects of life, causing global economies to regress, changing the way we work, the way we live, the way we communicate. While African economies have always been facing some economic challenges and overcoming many of those as well, but the COVID-19 exacerbated many situations and is causing, contraction or slowdown of our economies, probably for the first time in decades. And more recently, the 2021 Paris Summit on Financing African Economies noted that COVID-19 pandemic caused an unprecedented global economic crisis with major social consequences. After 25 years of continuous growth, Africa has been severely affected and is experiencing a recession or has experienced recession in 2020. The IMF also echoed some of these predictions that, on the slowdown or the recessions. However, not all is doom or gloom. The other phase of a crisis, as I always say, is opportunity. Well thought and well harnessed, Africa can definitely turn this unprecedented COVID crisis into also an unprecedented opportunity. Before I go into how can we turn it into an opportunity, I would like to start by posing where we can go wrong. Where we can go wrong is not recognizing that we've been and still are going through historical transformative times. By thinking that we can invest, that we can grow, that we can develop following patterns of the last decade or even the patterns of 2019. So these should not be the guiding lines. These should not be the approaches that we are and we should be following going forward. The guiding lines, or how do I see the way forward? In a post-COVID or for a post-COVID reprise, economic, political, and social efforts will definitely be focused on sustainability and inclusivity. COVID-19 is revealing quite assertively pre-existing difficulties in our economies. Thus, considering ESG factors is going to become more and more relevant in decisioning process of investment in the decisions for development strategies or growth patterns. The investment community at large is in the midst of a sea change in the kinds of assets that financial institutions are willing to hold. Concerns over the reputational and long-term financial risks of carbon-heavy investments have led more than 1,200 organizations worth over $14 trillion to divest either partially or fully from fossil fuels in recent years. Increasingly, these investments are not viewed as corporate social responsibility related giveaways, but rather viable opportunities to earn real returns. The IMF recently found that the so-called ESG funds, those that incorporate environmental, social, and governance principles, perform at least on par with conventional funds, and companies with better ESG performance generally experience lower costs of capital and generate better future financial performance. As investors search out bankable opportunities within new green growth sectors, they would do well to look to us in Africa, where renewable natural capital assets account for around 25% of total wealth, higher than any other region in the world. This figure does not even factor in opportunities to harness Africa's renewable energy resources, nor the vast array of ecosystem services that Africa provides, such as carbon sequestration and water filtration that are only now beginning to be properly valued and priced. Africa has a great opportunity. It can become the first region in the world to promote a non-carbon economic development. Coal, as we know, has been a key driver in US and Europe and even China and India. Africa instead can rewrite its own history, combining natural assets and renewables. The second guiding or strategic direction is strengthening the private sector. My brother from Zenith Bank touched upon that, and definitely His Excellency, the President of Ghana, spoke to it. But business environment and increasing the use of public-private partnerships as one of the means to scale up investments, especially in this context of post-19, is critical. To achieve this specific outcome, there is need for good planning, for upstream preparations, and fostering and more engagements between actors in industry and financial institutions. And this is where the role of this forum comes, and initiatives such as EBII become really crucial. The third guiding principle is investing in women. We all know that the African saying of those who want to go far, we have to go together. We cannot continue the way we are, where women are marginalized or are only, how would I say, put in that niche of small and medium enterprises. No. Women need finance, and by that I need big finance. Remember, the projects we're talking about in Africa, including the FCFTA, are by nature are regional ones, hence they require substantial finance. We cannot just say that this is, women are going to be, we focus on small and medium or even micro enterprises, but when it comes to big finance, big projects, it goes to men-owned, men-led companies. This has to stop. And if we want to go really far, we have to start now by going together and making sure that women are included throughout the value chain of all our economic activities and our projects. Male-owned companies in Africa typically have more than 6 times the capital investment of female-owned enterprises. And female ownership of formal companies across Africa still lags behind, for instance, that of Latin America. Women's access to formal finance, financial services has improved, yes, but female entrepreneurs tend to control fewer assets than men and enjoy less generous credit lines. Expanding the opportunities for female entrepreneurs through policies that foster gender equality would have tremendous impact on Africa's growth. And here I would like to salute the efforts of Zenith Bank and other African financial institutions who are, I know, who are focusing or refocusing their activities to making sure that women have access to finance, to big finance. Fourth guiding line would be energy and digitalization. Energy is the heartbeat of production, is the heartbeat of life. Without energy, we will not be communicating today. Without energy, without digitalization, we will not be communicating either. And we have to remember that still, as we speak, 650 million Africans lack access to electricity, and 900 million Africans do not have access to clean cooking. Only a third of Africa is connected digitally. I'm not even talking about whether they have the skills to use this connection. This is at the heart of sustainable recovery. Access to energy, access to digitalization, narrowing the digital and the energy, the digital divide and the energy poverty would have tremendous education and commerce, and the list goes on and on. Again, I reiterate that Africa is the largest region in the world endowed with renewable resources for energy. And again, this is the time, knowing that the cost effectiveness has improved of renewable energy. This is the time for investment in renewable energy across the continent. The question begs itself, okay, so what are you doing at the African Union for all the above? It has been said that earlier this year, in January 2021, the Agreement on African Continental Free Trade Area entered into force, and the first transaction took place on the 4th of January. And I need not tell you about the opportunities that African Free Trade Area would bring, as it opens up more investment opportunities in addressing, the existing fragmented markets within Africa, seeking to create an integrated African market of 1.3 billion consumers. Fortunately, remittances that have been the largest source of international financial flows to Africa since 2010, accounting for about a third of total external financial inflows, and represents the most stable source of flows, are experiencing a return to growth with an overall growth of 2.6% in 2021 after a decline of 12.5% in sub-Saharan Africa and plus 2.3% in Northern Africa in 2020. Recently, again this year in 2021, the African Union Commission initiated a number of programs to accelerate digital transformation in critical sectors such as health, education, agriculture, and commerce, and to put in place policies and regulations to create an enabling environment to establish a single African digital market in line with our strategy for digital transformation. And this, of course, to support the AFCFTA and all other sectors. These include development of sectoral digital strategies and implementation plans in health, education, agriculture, and postal services, as well as of the continental data policy framework to create a common Africa data space, and the digital ID interoperability framework to lay the foundations for the establishment of harmonized regional and continental digital ID systems to create this enabling environment to facilitate exchanges, to facilitate trade, to facilitate even movement. And of course, it's a building block towards the Africa's digital single market. Also within the framework of our program for infrastructure development in Africa, we made sure that the second phase of this program of regional and transcontinental infrastructure projects that they go from the year 2021 to the year 2030, we made sure that the projects selected respond to specific criteria. One of them is the integration urban-rural. The second is to ensure that women are included upstream in procurement of at least 10% of procurement goes to women-owned, women-led enterprises. to use smart technologies and to use climate resilient approaches and technologies in the implementation of these infrastructure projects. Again, with this concern or our eyes being kept on inclusiveness and also on sustainability. So the private sector development is now, our initiatives focus on women and youth entrepreneurs, and they have been identified as our, for the launch of the 1 million, a 1 million initiative that targets investments in millions of Africans in 4 key areas like employment, entrepreneurship, education, and engagement. And I can go on, regarding many of the initiatives through the African Union. But one recent one in June was the African Single Electricity Market, which again, based on Africa's renewable resources for energy. And that's again, huge, we talk about a huge electricity market to be created. Last but not least, tackling illicit funds. It is estimated that Africa has lost up about $1.8 trillion between 1970 2008 and continues to lose extensive finances annually through illicit financial flows or illicit capital flight. Now, to curtail illicit financial flows, the African Union has committed to institutionalizing prudent legal and regulatory regimes, including fiscal policies that disallow financial secrecy, fight corruption, that institute and or strengthen African institutions, to build member states' capacity for contract negotiation, tax administration, and identification and return of resources lost through illicit financial flows, to regain ownership of Africa's natural resources, and implementation of sound, prudent management and good governance of these natural resources. There are also a number of other conventions to fight corruption, to fight and prevent corruption, and of course cybersecurity, which is, as we know, one of the major challenges that we're having now with the expansion of digitalization. In conclusion, this is the time to review, to rethink, to refocus our approaches for development, for investment, for growth. Crisis or not, please remember, Africa remains the land of opportunities. And this time we want to make sure that these opportunities are green, that they are sustainable, that they are inclusive, and that they are smart. And I know that we'll get there. I wish to thank all the distinguished participants, but again, I reiterate my thanks to the organizers and to EBII and to Adjoa, and wish everybody fruitful deliberations and successful summit. And I thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, Her Excellency Dr. Amani Abou-Zeid. Now, we do have time to take some questions which you may wish to address to either Her Excellency or Mr. Onyeagwu. And please to moderate these, welcome back your host from EBII Group, Adjoa Adjei-Twum.
Thank you. Thank you, Your Excellency, Dr. Amani Abou-Zeid. Very big thank you for your support. Last year, you supported us immensely, and this year, you have been a great support to us again. So on behalf of myself and the team, we want to say a very big thank you for your incredible support. Thank you so much. And of course, Mr. Ebenezer Onyeagwu, for your support from Zenith Bank. I remember when I mentioned to you, this is what I wanted to do. And you immediately said, this is going to be really big. So you wanted to make sure that Zenith is behind us, and you have kept your word. And so I want to say a very big thank you also for your support. Thank you. So, and for those incredible speeches, we are open for questions. And so if anybody in the audience here has any questions for Her Excellency Dr. Amani or Mr. Ebenezer Onyeagwu, please, you may ask your questions. If not, okay, we have Mr. Yofi Grants from GIPC, CEO of GIPC Ghana, at the back. Question.
Good afternoon. Good to see you. Last meeting. My question is, and President Nana Akufo-Addo spoke about, it's about the risk premium always has to pay investment and money. Although there is good reason to believe that African risk is not as bad as in other areas of the world. So is there any structured effort, especially from the African Development Bank, to, I don't know whether to say to diffuse this or to risk rate appropriately such that Africa can attract money at good rates?
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Yofi Grant from CEO of GIPC, that's Ghana Investment Promotion Center. So I'm passing on the question to Your Excellency, Dr. Amani. Over to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Sorry, shall I speak?
Yes, please. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Adjoa, and I really appreciate the question. Definitely. First of all, I represent the African Union. In a previous life, I used to be with the African Development Bank, but then again, this is we're talking the
Apologies, we seem to have lost Amani.
I'm sorry, we were disconnected. It seems we were disconnected. Shall I resume?
Okay, I think
Shall I resume? We were disconnected for a second.
Yes, please. Yes, you were disconnected.
Yes. So yes, we did a study to show. I mean, the African Development Bank did a study to show how. I mean, the perception of risk, that it's a perception and it's not true risk, and that there are several ways of addressing the risk of projects. Same thing is being done, a work that we have been, recently doing with the Africa 50, which is another great effort and initiative for private investments in Africa. And I really applaud the effort of Zenith Bank, in what was said here, that even through the international media, projecting the positive stories about Africa, and risk is not the only thing they keep perpetuating in the media. Unfortunately, what you see in the media is rarely the good stories or the positive stories. Is always, negative ones. This is where such a summit is important. There is also a very interesting article and study that was conducted, I believe, by Boston Consulting, again showing that Africa is the third less risky region in the world. In addition, we put in place, because again, here I'm talking about infrastructure, knowing that infrastructure requires huge amounts of funding, and also they are long-term, we're talking 20, 30 years. We put some facilities, financial instruments to help lessen the, or on a grant basis, to make sure that, the early investments are being reduced, because we carry out things like the pre-feasibility or the studies that are needed in the mega or the large regional infrastructure projects, hence, making it easier for the investor. Last but not least, and I'm sure you we all have been listening to His Excellency President of Ghana when he spoke about digitalization. Please do not underestimate this tool. When it comes to private sector or the improvement of the investment climate in general, digitalization offer a very important tool in, not only de-risking a project, but in making sure that one has better information, that they have access to certain people, getting full knowledge, and cutting, avoiding, the red tapes here and there. So yes, there are efforts throughout the continent. We're all working on that. All the African bigger family is working, to make sure that this stereotype is changed forever. And maybe I use this opportunity also to call on the media to show and showcase the good stories and success stories across the continent. And please do not perpetuate an image that was maybe true 50 years ago, but it's no longer the case. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency, Dr. Amani Abou-Zeid. Thank you for that. We can take one more question in the room. Okay, we have Dr. Adeyinka.
Hi, thanks. My question goes to Mr. Ebenezer, CEO of Zenith Bank in Ghana. You made some really powerful points about impact investment and also the force of the youth in Africa. And I found that pretty intriguing, as we know the stats and the data support the fact that young people currently make up the larger chunk of our population in Africa. I was wondering whether your bank or indeed financial institutions are making specific interventions to support young people, particularly knowing that there is now the rise of tech, the creative space is largely improving, and there's so many other sectors that are currently gathering a lot of steam, and yet a lot of young people are faced with steep challenges of building investable and scalable businesses, for which I believe that the financial institutions have a huge role to play in supporting them. And I was wondering what your thoughts were on this, and whether Zenith Bank, for instance, as an organization, is making any concerted efforts to build interventions in this space for young people.
Thank you very much, Dr. Adeyinka, Associate Lecturer from Henley Business School. That's a very good question. So over to you, Mr. Ebenezer Onyeagwu.
Yeah, Dr. Adeyinka, thank you very much. That's a very interesting question. First and foremost, Zenith Bank is youth-centric. We have quite a number of interventions. And apart from being youth-centric, in the past 10 years, more than 10 years ago, Zenith Bank has continued to support ICT development and education among the youths. We create empowerment for the youth, making use of, focusing on digital. Indeed, the essence of youth empowerment in the space of digital technology is actually the brainchild of our chairman. He is so particular about it, he's very passionate about it. And we have also moved this forward by organizing a yearly hackathon. The whole essence of this hackathon is to identify budding digital youth entrepreneurs that we can identify, incubate, help them to grow, and ultimately become big businesses today. Last year, we had an intervention with the United Nations Council for Africa in the midst of the pandemic, where we had a sponsorship on digital entrepreneurship, and we rewarded the 3 most outstanding pitches, not only with cash prizes, we also rewarded them with mentorship. So talking about the youth, again, in terms of funding, I talked about the fact that we have devoted about $50 million, which is targeted at SME and women financing. So we provide the funding for the youths at single digits, long-term, to enable them upscale and build up their businesses. Beyond that, the Central Bank of Nigeria has also come up with a bigger intervention scheme for the youth. It's called the Creative Sector Financing Scheme, whereby CBN also devotes a substantial pool of funds targeted at providing funding for the youths. And the banks in Nigeria today, we have come up together to build a creative center, a creative hub. If you are Dr. Denka, I believe you are in Nigeria, a Nigerian, you must be familiar with the old National Art Theater that has become moribund. But the Committee of Banks in Nigeria, we have met and put together in the first instance about 40 billion naira, which is being targeted to refurbish and rejuvenate the National Arts Theater. The essence of that is for us to create verticals, for the creative sector verticals of ICT, music. Then we're also creating for fashion designing, because what we have observed is that a lot of our youths have creative talent, but the limitation they have is the seed capital for them to acquire the equipment to upscale their business. So we are providing that as a center. It's going to act like a center of excellence. Hopefully in the next 2 to 3 years, it should be completed. Once the center is completed, all we're asking you to do is come to the center with your talent. In terms of the equipment you need, there will be the state-of-art equipment. You want to shoot a movie, you want to develop a program, whatever you want to do, that center will provide for it. So Zenith Bank is particular about youth empowerment and will continue to devote a lot of a lot of resources to that. Again, talking about risk in Africa, let me say that the investment trade in Africa is loading. For those who are still looking at Africa in terms of the risk premium, like Her Excellency Dr. Amani said, is a perception. You need to be in Africa to appreciate the fact that what you see from afar about Africa is not the reality on ground. And if you want to be able to really appreciate what it is, you need to be in Africa. We hear Toyota has betted in Ghana. Twitter has also betted in Ghana. Stripes has taken a piece of Paystack in Nigeria. For those who are still undecided, I urge you, get into the train now, because once the train moves, by the time it gets to the next station, there may not be any seat for you. It may be crowded. Every region of the world has its own peculiar risk profile. Africa is not an exception. It's just that when we come to talking about Africa, we tend to project the wrong things. We tend to project the negative about Africa. So we need to see Africa differently, and you have to be in Africa for you to appreciate the fact that Africa is not as bad as it's being projected. If Africa was bad, how come those of us are still here? I give you the story of the history of Zenith. Zenith was started in year 1990 by Mr. Jimovia, our current chairman and founder. He started Zenith Bank with a seed capital of $4 million. Today, 31 years after, Zenith Bank market cap is about almost $3 billion. Think about it, the returns. Where would you get that returns? In which clime will you get that kind of returns? I'm talking of Zenith Bank. It applies to other businesses, other sectors. So Africa remains a treasure port of investment. Yes, there are risks in it. We'll need to de-risk. De-risk in Africa will mean reforms, like I mentioned. Reform, and be with particular respect to the rule of law and the sanctity of contracts. Thank you.
Thank you. I know that we're supposed to be on break now, lunch break, given that the next session starts at 1:15, I believe. So I know, Mr. Yofi, you have a very quick question. We will take that very quickly.
This question goes to Her Excellency Dr. Abou-Zeid. We often hear, once again, the Africa risk issue. We often hear this refrain that Africans cannot structure infrastructure projects. And therefore, very often, you have on the continent foreign companies and foreign financiers crowding the infra space. But my view is that that oft-cited refrain in itself has become a tool for not building capacity on the continent for Africans to be able to engage in infrastructure. Of course, there are exceptions in Egypt, in South Africa, Morocco. How, once again, can the AU, and as well as the AFDB, and of course I know Africa 50 is also a very good tool to do, but how can these bodies demystify this space so that we can actually build capacity on the continent for the continent, especially in the advent of the AFCFTA?
Thank you very much.
Yes. Is there another question you would like me to take? I can take two at once.
And that's it. Thank you. Very much.
And thank you for this important question. And let me just say something. Again, going back to the theme, crisis, opportunity. So being, the two sides of that coin called COVID. What did COVID do? COVID showed us that, with the interruption of the supply chain, we had to depend on ourselves. And one of the great untold stories, and still untold, by the way, and we should make that also to showcase it to the world, that Africans from day one, instead of competing over resources, be they, medical equipment or, the necessary medical supplies, they were sharing those supplies. They were sharing those supplies. We have seen how the world, has been behaving when it comes to medical supplies. That was not what Africa did. Africa shared every resource, and our private sector, and here I want to take also the opportunity to thank our private sector. They changed or rethought, the production lines to allow for production of medical supplies to share with other African countries and in addition to local communities. So the interruption of the supply chain, you can extrapolate over that because it also showed us that we cannot continue depending on what's coming from outside the continent, and that really the hope is to accelerate regional integration in every sector in order to make sure that there is industrialization and that there is trade, and that what we trade through the African Free Trade Area is not are not products that are manufactured elsewhere, but that they are manufactured in Africa. So we trade, it becomes truly, the AFCFTA an initiative for Africans, but not to, expand the market of someone else, but expand the market also for Africans. Now, going to infrastructure per se, let me just say that there is the issue of perception, and please, I would like us also to dispel, even from our own heads, the issue of, the expert, because someone is coming from outside the continent suddenly becomes expert. Look around and look at this podium and look around you in the room, you will find plenty of African experts. So please, let us just rethink all the issue of expert. And here I know that I'm also in Oxford, and I myself, part of my education was in the UK. There's a whole lot of literature around this foreign expert. So no expert, and the best expert is the ones that are there, who know the markets, who know the people, and who know the dynamics in Africa, and we do have them within this continent. But that's not enough. The cultural stereotype is not enough. You spoke about the African Development Bank, and from experience, from knowledge, I've been doing that myself because I have implemented also large infrastructure projects. There is a preferential treatment of African enterprises, meaning for the same quality, if the price is presented by an African enterprise is 10 or 15%, I can't remember the percentage, the bid goes to an African enterprise. Now, some I know would purposely, put an African enterprise name, just to win the bid, but we have to be vigilant. And yes, there is plenty of good examples, enterprises, whether infrastructure or elsewhere across the continent, and we need to take advantage of that. And let me here again salute Ghana. I know that Ghana recently as well, lots of joint infrastructure and transport, particularly initiatives have been concluded between Ghana and some African countries, namely, I know Egypt, they've done that. So we are seeing a new dynamic that also was created or what was amplified thanks to COVID-19 crisis.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much, Your Excellency, Dr. Amani. I think we will take a break now for lunch and return at 1:15. So once again, I'd like to honor and thank our keynote speakers, Your Excellency, Dr. Amani Abou-Zeid, African Union Commissioner for Infrastructure and Energy, and of course also Mr. Ebenezer Onyeagwu, the CEO, the Group Managing Director for Zenith Bank PLC. Once again, thank you on behalf of myself, my team, and everybody in this room. I'd like to say thank you and have a good afternoon. Thank you. Bye-bye.